Hello, this is Sara with Posh Pooch Designs, and today's video is another special request for this particular pattern, and this is a free pattern on my blog. It's just the Fringed Colorado Cowl. Now, the person making this is not making it in these Colorado colors. This is this blue and this, I guess is more of a cream, of the Homespun yarn. And so I thought I would take the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about how to work with some of the Homespun yarns and these bumpy, lumpy, hairy yarns to kind of help you. And this is a really great beginner project with working with this type of yarn. Now, this is just a simple cowl. It's stitched with double crochets, chain one in between. And of course this one has a white stripe on it. It also has the Colorado logo if you want to make it in Colorado colors. Today we're going to be using this colorway. It's got some blues and some greens and some purples. I think it's called Very Berry, and it is a homespun yarn. And we're going to be using this today to make this cowl. Now the neat thing about this cowl is you can make it as thick as you want, and you can also make it as long as you want. If you follow the pattern, you'll get a cowl that's about 36 inches around and about 8 inches deep. And that, of course, is this portion. Where is my, there it is, tape measure. You're getting about, there we go. This is a 6-inch ruler, so we're getting about right here. So this one is really about 7 inches with the fringe. And of course, I'm going to show you how to do the fringe as well. So what you're going to need for our project is some homespun. You'll just need one skein of homespun or other type of lumpy, bumpy yarn. And let me check the ounces on this one. It looks like it's 6 ounces. So you just need one skein of homespun or something similar. And today we're going to be using our K-hook. It's a 6.5 millimeter K-hook. And then you'll also need a pair of scissors, because we're going to need a nice sharp pair of scissors to be cutting on that fringe. And a needle with a nice big hole, because the homespun yarn is a number 5. Now you don't have to use homespun yarn to do this pattern. You can use any chunky number 5 if you want to just practice the pattern. But today we're talking about using the homespun lumpy bumpy yarns. So if you've got just a skein of this homespun laying around in your yarn stash, just go ahead and grab it. This is a great practice pattern to learn to use this yarn. So grab your yarn, your K-hook, and we'll get started. Alrighty, let's go ahead and get started. So here's my yarn that I'm going to be using, and I'm using my K-hook like we discussed. And the first thing we're going to do is chain 100 chains. I know that that's a lot, but when working with this yarn, the best way to do it is to begin with a chain. So we're going to wrap our slip knot on just like we do. And I will suggest when you're working with this yarn that you chain a little bit looser than what you're used to. And we're using a K-hook today. And if you are a very tight crocheter and you find that you're making your chains too small, because they need to be a little looser than what we normally do for crochet so that we can find our chains for the next row. So if you are a tight crocheter, you might want to go up a hook size, just so that you know you're making your, just for the chain portion, just so that you can find those stitches. And what I do is I just chain nice and loosely. You can see those are nice big chains, because we need to find our chains in those lumps and bumps when we do the next row. So we're going to chain 100 for this size cowl. If you want your cowl to be bigger or smaller, you can add or subtract 2 chains per inch to make it longer or shorter. So we're going to chain 100 chains. Another thing that you can do if you lose count is to use stitch markers. And you can use a stitch marker to mark, like say every 20 chains, and then you won't get lost, because it's very difficult in this yarn to go back and count your chains. So here I've got about 20. Then I would just take one of my stitch markers and just mark that, and then I could count 20 again. And that's just a way that would help you keep track of your chains. All right, so we're going to chain those 100 chains. We have now chained our 100 chains. And if you were using your bigger hook, switch back to your K hook. And the hardest part really in this whole cowl is trying not to twist our chain. And so what I do is I lay it around like this so that I can see the whole chain laid out flat. You may have to sit at your kitchen table. Like here I've got a twist, so I'm going to twist that out and just turn it, because we're going to need to join. But one neat thing about working with this yarn, when you're doing it this way, if it gets a little twisted, because of all the lumps and bumps, it's easy to hide. So don't panic about that either. All right, so what we're going to do next is we're going to take our chain, pull this back a little, and we're going to join to that first chain that we did, because we're making a cowl, so we want to work in the round. So get that string we're not using out of the way, and we're joining with a slip stitch. And then we're going to chain 4. So the way this first row is going to work is we chained 4. And the chain 4 counts as 1 double crochet and a chain 1. We're going to skip the next chain and then stitch a double crochet. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and stitch this, and then I'm going to talk to you about how to find your chains in your chains. Double crochet, chain 1. Alright, now how to find your stitches in this chain we just made. The best way you can do it is to watch these on top. And I use my finger and I just feel, okay, here's the next stitch. And then I go here, here's the next stitch. So I chained my 1 and I'm going to make my double crochet in the next stitch, because we're going to skip 1 in between. So our first chain 4 counted as a double crochet, chain 1. Then we double crocheted in the next stitch because we skipped 1. So basically your double crochet, chain 1, and then skip the next chain. Double crochet, chain 1, and skip the next chain. And this first row may take you a little bit longer than, say, stitching a regular row of a double crochet, but it's worth it because you need to take your time and find those loops in there. There's the next stitch, so then we can see that this is the next stitch. So we need to chain 1, forgot to do that, there we go, and we're going to double crochet in the next stitch. Skip 1 and then double crochet in the next stitch and chain 1. Okay, so here's our next stitch. We're going to skip this one and we'll double crochet, chain 1 in the next stitch. And this is how this row is going to go. It might take you a little bit more time, like I said, than usual on starting a project, but it's definitely worth it. Okay, now I want to talk to you about if you've accidentally twisted your yarn. I'm going to turn mine so it looks twisted. Okay, so you come to the next stitch and you can see that this is a little twisted. It's okay. Don't panic, because like I said, the bumps in this hide a multitude of issues. So what you would do is just go ahead and stitch in that twisted stitch, even though that's a skipped one. Go ahead and stitch in it like you would normally. And then just turn your yarn back over where it's supposed to go. You know, that's one of the neat things about this lumpy bumpy yarn is you can fix without there being a major issue. So for this next row here that we're going to complete, we're going to skip the next stitch, double crochet, chain 1, skip the next chain, there's my loop, use your finger and your thumb to find your next loop, double crochet, chain 1, and you'll do this all the way around, and then I'll show you how to join to the top of your chain 3, not your chain 4. But that's how we do it. Let me grab this other one again just so you can get an idea of what it's going to look like. All right. See? Here's the chain, and here's the double crochet, chain 1, skip this, double crochet, and it's going to lay beautifully. You're really going to like this. All right, so use your finger and your thumb, find those stitches. Here's my next stitch, here's the one I'm going to work in, double crochet, chain 1. And the only other hint I want to give you in doing this is to remember to stitch looser than you're used to. This yarn is not made to be stitched super tight. It will bunch up and you'll have almost look like knots in it if you try to stitch it too tightly. And it also lays a lot better if you just stitch it nice and loose. So all the way around, double crochet, chain 1, skip the next chain, double crochet, chain 1 in the next, skip the next chain. And it'll look like this. So you can see that I have finished my round around. Now, this is how it should look. But let's say you got all the way back around here and you realized that you had twisted your yarn. See, I put a twist in it. Another neat thing about this yarn is it's not hard to just twist it in place, because that will be somewhat hidden in those lumps and bumps. Lay your scarf or your cowl out flat so you can see if you've twisted it. If you've twisted it, just fix it here so that your two ends meet like that. All right, so I'm going to turn this, and we're going to join. Get my hook in there. There we go. Now, at the beginning, we chained 4, but we're going to join to the top of the chain 3 because the last chain counted as the chain 1 in between the stitches. So we're going to join to the chain 3 and chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, from here on out, this pattern is super easy because you're going to be following the double crochets and the chain 1s that you already stitched. So what you'll do is you've got chain 3, and then your 4th chain counted as a chain 1, double crochet, chain 1. Then we're going to double crochet in the top of that double crochet from the previous row. Then chain 1 and double crochet in the top of the previous row. And so now you can easily find where to place your stitches. So we chained 1, or double crochet right in the top of the next double crochet, chain 1, double crochet in the top of the next double crochet. And you can easily see where to place your stitches because we're stitching in the double crochets, chain 1 in between, and it makes it look a little bit like a ladder, but it works really nice. Now remember to keep your stitches a little bit loose because part of the charm of this yarn are those lumps and those bumps that are in the yarn. It's called, I don't know, it looks more like a little curly braid to me, but it's part of the charm of this yarn and part of what makes it pretty and fun even though it's a little bit difficult to work with, and there have been times I've wanted to pull all my hair out because I couldn't find my stitches, it's definitely worth it because this yarn, I don't know, it has the Homespun has lots of pretty colors and lots of different variations. I guess that's the word I'm looking for. Because you can do this in solids, you can do it in the variegated or whatever that you want. And this is Homespun from Lion Brand, but the other yarn companies all make similar yarns. Some are thicker, some are thinner. And you can do this same technique on any of those. Now, if it's thicker, it will be bigger, of course. But, I mean, it's a great technique to make a nice cowl. And it won't be too warm because it'll have holes for circulation, but it will still be warm enough where you can keep warm on a cooler day. So, we're going to double crochet in the double crochet, the top of the double crochet, and then chain 1 all the way around. And make sure you go in the top of that double crochet, not the holes between. All right, let me grab this other one again so that you can take a good look at it. See, all the double crochets line up, and the chain 1 spaces in between. So we'll continue this for this row, and I'll meet you back around at the chain 3. Again, take your time and don't panic. I finished the next row. You can see how it lines up. Your double crochets are in your double crochets, and you have your chain 1 spaces in between. All right, so now we're going to join again to the top of the chain 3 because the 4th chain counts as that chain 1. Whoops. All right. And then we're going to chain 4 again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, for the remainder of this cowl, we're going to stitch 4 more rows exactly like we did the last row, so that we have a total of 6 rows of the double crochet, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet. So we're going to do 4 more rows exactly like we did the previous row. So the chain 4 counts as double crochet, chain 1, double crochet in the top of the double crochet, and chain 1. And again, remember, keep your stitches somewhat loose. Double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, all the way around until you have a total of 6 rows. Now again, if you want it to be wider, you can do as many rows as you want to. I like 6 rows because it makes it a nice thickness once we add the fringe. So go ahead and complete your 6 rows, and then we'll tie off, and I'll show you how to weave in your end and how to do the fringe, because the fringe is what makes this cowl extra special. So I finished my last row, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I'm going to cut my yarn and tie off. Now I need to weave in my ends, so I've got this nice big needle. We'll start with this one, and we'll just go up in behind. And just a note on weaving in, it's very important to go in the stitches themselves and not in the holes between. And I'll go up, I'll come back around and go through what I just did. And then a lot of times I'll go and go back down, just making sure I'm going through stitches and not holes. And then I'll clip that off. All right, here's the beginning one where we started. And this is where you can kind of clean up a little bit. If you twisted your yarn or it's just not laying as pretty as you'd like, you know, you can, there we go, sort of clean it up and make it tidy. Let's get the fuzz off of there. The end of this one's pretty fuzzy. We'll just go back and forth, making sure that end's nice and closed. And then we'll do the same thing that we did on the other side. We'll go up one of those double crochet stitches. We'll turn around and come right back down. I'm going to do that one again just in case. Alright, and then I will tie that off. So now you have a fun cowl. It's really pretty. This one looks nice with the way it's striped up. But I think it's a little plain, and that's why I like to add the fringe. To make the fringe, I use a piece of cardboard that has the 6 inches measured off, because I want my fringe to be not quite 6 inches, but I want a little bit of room for trimming. And so what I'll do is I'll put it on there about like this, hold it with my thumb, and just wrap a bunch on there. And you're going to need one for every stitch, so you're going to need about 100 wraps. Okay, I'm not going to wrap 100. We can always wrap more. So I'm going to cut that. And then I'm just going to pick this up and cut this end right along that piece. All right, so here's my fringe. Now, if you want your fringe longer or shorter, you can certainly do that. If you want a really long, pretty fringe or a really short fringe, it's totally up to you. All right, so I'm just going to begin on this edge. Now, it doesn't matter which edge is your edge. You just choose one. Because of the way it's stitched, it doesn't really matter. All right, so I'm going to grab one of my pieces of fringe. I'm going to move these back here. So here's one of my pieces of fringe. Now, if you want your fringe thicker, you can always do 2 pieces. But because I'm putting one on every stitch, I'm just going to use one. So the way we add the fringe, I'm going to begin first by putting one on a double crochet. So I'm going to put my hook through that double crochet stitch. I'm going to put my loop on my hook and pull it through. Now I'm going to wrap the tail of that fringe around and pull that through that loop and then gently snug that down. And that's how we add the fringe. Now, for adding the fringe in the stitch where it's a chain 1 space, I'm just going to put my hook right through the whole chain 1 space and do the fringe the same way. Grab the loop through, yarn over, and pull those tails through. Just like that. And I'll do this all the way around. Now I'm going to do the next double crochet, put the loop on, pull it through, put the tails over my hook, and pull it through the loop. And we'll do this all the way around the whole scarf. I guess it's actually a cowl. Now I probably will have to trim this fringe, but it's already looking really pretty to me. So I'm going to continue this around, and you can do the same thing. And then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how to get them a little bit fluffy. So I added all the fringe to my cowl, and you can see that it needs a little bit of trimming. But before I do that, I want to show you something that you can do if you want to make your fringe just a little bit fluffy or fuzzy. You can take your needle and you can, let me just spread this so we just have one here, and you can kind of take your needle and open up the yarn. Might take a little work, and that gives it just a little bit of fuzz on the end. I'm using a little bit of a blunt needle, so maybe I need to get one that's a little bit sharper. But you can see how it fuzzes it up, and A lot of times it will do it by itself, but you can do it so that it's a little bit fluffier and fun. I do recommend, if you have to wash this particular yarn, that you hand wash it and maybe lay it out to dry and try to just spot wash it as you can. Because once you cut this and put this through the wash machine, it will be quite a fuzzy mess. Let me grab this other one again just so we can see how I fluffed out and made these real fluffy just by taking my needle and just opening up those ends. And I really love the way that that looks. Alright, so now that you've fluffed your ends, if you want to, if you don't, and it will do it some naturally. You can see I do have some edges that need a little trimming, and so all I do is I just take my scissors, and this is another reason why you need a good sharp pair of scissors, and I just sort of cut those edges, but I don't want them perfect. I mean, I do try to get the long ones off, but I don't want my fringe to be perfect. And I was going to cut it shorter, but I really like the length of this, and so I'm just going to keep it. But you won't have a lot of trimming if you used the cardboard for your fringe. And it's really easy to make one of these. You just take your ruler, mark off your markings, and just cut you a piece of cardboard. And I have a little slit up here because I use this for making tassels or tassels as well. So that's how we make the homespun fringed cowl.